Welcome back to the Aviation RC Noob Podcast. You found us. My name is Joe.
And I'm Matt.
We're here to be with you along your journey and to share our experiences in RC aviation. If you have any questions, thoughts, or want to share a flight story, hit us up at aviationrcnoob@gmail.com. Now, buckle in. Let's take off.
All right, it's episode 28. Are you going somewhere?
Are we?
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I know I'm going somewhere, and I'm hoping you can join me. We're going to go to Flite Fest if we can.
Okay.
I've already set up to go. We're coming up on the month of July. Right now, we're recording this at the end of June, and midway through July, Flite Test has its annual fly-in up in Malvern, Ohio. And so July 15th through the 18th, you go up, camp, fly, have fun, build stuff, break stuff, combat stuff, smash stuff, have a good time, meet people.
Nice.
Yeah. And so if we get a chance, it took me a handful of years when I started of kind of watching different people's videos. And of course, their promotional stuff. I mean, there's a lot of fun things that seem to be happening there. And I took a trip out there a handful of years ago, and it was awesome. It was a good time. And I would love, and I feel like if you're new to this hobby and you've learned how to build stuff flight test style, that is a fly-in that is friendly to the noob. Probably the friendliest fly-in to the noob I've ever been to. And I'm not saying like, your local club doesn't warmly invite you and make sure that you're having a great time too. Because absolutely, and there's a bunch of different places, different fly-ins and different flying events that you can go to that are awesome. I know CEF, around where we are in the Carolinas, Southeastern Flite Fest is CEF. It's a couple hours away from you, Joe. And as I understand it, it is an absolute mayhem nutty week of flight aviation, just awesome all over the place. Full scale, mostly RC, but they have like an aerodrome and a bunch of things. So I was told it is like the thing you need to go to. If you've never been to it, why are you waiting?
Right.
And over the last couple of years, I mean, everything's been kind of interrupted. So I think with all the vaccines coming out the way they are, and many people being immunized or choosing to be immunized, they're opening them up. Events are opening back up. And Flite Fest is pretty much, it's out in the field. You go out, you camp for a little while, either in an RV or a tent, and you have a good time. So it makes, I guess, the dangers of COVID-19 are more mute in that location.
Okay.
Yeah. So at this point, and it's only a couple weeks out, it is still on, and it's on like Donkey Kong. So I'm planning on going, and I'm hoping to grab Joe by the ear and drag him with me if I can.
Yeah, I've got to.
If I have
I've got
to
check in. Yeah, I've got to check in with some stuff at work. I just kind of got a bombshell dropped on me today, as far as the workload for next month. So, we'll.
Would you guys all stop making Joe do extra stuff all the time? I'm just kidding. No, yeah, and that's part of it's part of life, right? You have a lot of plans, you have a lot of things you're getting excited about doing, and all of a sudden somebody says, before you go do that, I need you to come here and make a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
It's going to take most of your time.
Well,
that's okay.
Anyway, so I'm gonna see if I can make it. I think I still want to, but it's just a lot going on. So,
well, if we do, I'm pretty sure we're going to be carpooling and probably camping on the same site. So,
oh yeah,
yeah, and we'll talk about where I think you'll probably be able to find us. Although that's at Flite Fest is always a mix. So anyway, before we get there, why don't we do what we always do, and talk about what we've flown over the last couple of weeks and what we've been doing in the hobby. Yeah. Joe, you had a little bit of excitement. Why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, so I finally got the Corsair up in the air.
Oh yeah, whoop whoop, yeah.
That was go ahead.
I was gonna say, when'd you get that done?
So that was not this past weekend, but the weekend before that.
It was like a Friday build night, right? You finished it up, got that happy.
Was that what it was? Might have been.
I think so. I think you were doing a final tinkering with it, and you're like, "Yep, I'm happy. This is
I think so. Yeah,
working the way it's supposed to. Good."
So so I got to take that out, and I kind of rode to the outside of town to another place that I hadn't flown here before, but it's just out in farm country, and there was basically an unplanted field out there that I got to fly. It was kind of small. It's decent. You start walking it, you start flying it, it gets kind of small real quick.
Yeah.
But I had mounted the FPV camera on the Corsair, had the goggles up recording, and while I did record and I posted a private video that I sent to Matthew.
Yeah, I took a look. It's awesome.
That it's okay.
So me being able to watch you fly that Corsair, I mean, from the tail or where you put in the cockpit.
Yeah,
right?
but the reception was just really bad.
No, that's immaterial. Okay.
Yeah. So I may eventually get back to editing that a bit more. We'll see. But as is, it just the quality of the FPV footage was real bad, so I didn't want to go putting a whole lot of time into that. But
sure.
I did get to fly.
You did have spots in there that were really nice. I mean, there was segments of probably like a minute here or 2 minutes there that were pretty solid connection, and the video footage was really, really nice. It was a joy to watch. There was some
nicer bits.
There was like a corner of the field that was getting terrible reception every time you flew over there, which it would seem to be like part of the circle. And it's kind of the same way in my field. If I go off to the left, which is pretty much how you have to land half the time, the reception's terrible. So that's okay. It's part of FPV.
So first flight, just throttle it up and Hail Mary, really. That's about all you can do on those maidens. And she acted rather tail heavy. Now I'll kind of keep this a little shorter, but she acted tail heavy. She kept wanting to roll one way or the other. It just seemed to keep being one way, which there was wind out that day. So the rolling tendency could have been from the wind. A little bit. Could have been from the rudder. I didn't even think about that, but you brought up the rudder. Yeah. When we
did a little bit of postmortem, oh my God, that's not even English. I thought like, well, that could be rudder. Rudder tends to have this coupled rolling effect sometimes. And so the first flight, it was a success. I'll just say that. I put it down, and what ended up being with that tail heavy nature, I ended up putting some nose down trim, and that seemed to on the second flight take care of it. Now that first that maiden flight, because I was having to hold nose down and hold the stick in one direction to keep it from rolling, and then let off the roll to let it roll, let off the nose down to let it nose up to go into the return, trying to hold that and the nerves of a maiden flight. Trying to remember where that spot is to return it to neutral.
And then just the nerves of the maiden flight. I mean, if you could have had a camera on my thumb was swinging that stick. I was trying to hold my thumb still, and that stick was just all over the place. Me trying to hold it still. That's
nerves, man.
Not hold the plane still, hold the stick still. It was ridiculous. So first flight done, in the bag, landed it, put some nose down trim, put it back up in the air. Seemed to be flying pretty good.
Oh, wait. Before you go, you just jumped over, like you landed it, replaced the thing, and put it right back in the air. When you landed it, and you knew you flew it around, you brought it back to the ground safe and sound, that must have felt amazing.
It did. There was some frustrations about the flight tendencies of it.
Well, sure.
And there was some, I can't believe I did that with it flying the way it was and didn't crash it. But
yeah. That's okay,
there ended
good.
up being, I think it caught an old corn stalk on the way down or something.
Sure.
So, on one of the landings, because the underside of one of the wings got a little rub on it. But
it's okay.
So no, that felt really good.
Yeah.
Trimmed it, kind of made some trim adjustments and got it back up in the air.
So so that way you could get it to neutral with trim rather than holding a stick.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And really it was just that I couldn't trim it while I was in the air the first flight because it needed so much trim. I didn't want to take my hands off the control. So when I landed it, then I kind of did some trimming and put it back up. And then I finished trimming her in. And she was flying good at that point. She still had some roll tendency, but it seemed to be one way or the other based on which way the wind was blowing.
Okay.
There's a second flight, brought it in, landed it. Then the guy whose house I was flying out by came out and chatted with me for a bit. And I ended up putting the FPV goggles on him so he could, be in the cockpit.
Yeah.
I chucked it up and flew it around for a bit. And,
nice.
He kind of got that disorientation sickness going on, where he was like, I can't be in here anymore. So he took them off. So landed it again.
Yeah, it's a different experience for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then he went back, walking back inside, and I changed the battery out. And, the battery was only at like 3.8, so it wasn't remotely depleted. Changed the battery, put it back up in the air. And while I was flying that flight, a gentleman was working on passing me, but stopped. And I didn't see who it was, what vehicle he was in. Because I was keeping my eyes on the plane, I knew somebody had stopped. And he started talking to me about, what is that? What are you flying? And I was letting him know. He's like, oh, man, that's so cool. That's amazing. And he was just over the top excited about it.
Yeah, I think at that point you were talking to me on the phone, and then you're like, hey, I got to go in to grab something. So, I guess you had the phone just sort of sitting in the seat. And then I heard you talking to the guy. And then you're like, hold on, I got somebody interested in these planes. And you put me back down. And I heard he's like, what's that? What's going on? It was kind of muffled, but that guy was very interested in the fact that not only what you were doing, but how reasonably priced it was to get in.
It was because, on the front end, he was asking me, where I got it, how I got the plane, and I built it. And all this time I'm steady flying the plane, and I can't look at him because I can't take my eyes. And I let him know, I can't take my eyes off the plane. So we're talking, but I did a couple low passes so he could see. I kind of brought it low over towards the road where he was, and then would bank it and pull it back off, let the plane climb out. And, after a little while, I finally set the plane down and walked over to him so I could talk to him. And he had his son with him. And so we were, talking about the planes and what they were. I picked it up, showed it to him, like, look, it's just foam board, some electronics. We talked about what it takes to get into it. Cause he was asking me, like, what I would charge him to make one. And I was like, no disrespect, dude. Like, it's time that I don't have. Like, I honestly just got this one up in the air, and it's the only plane that I've got flying. So, but I was able to kind of share the flight test methodology, like the name with him, and say, look, go look this stuff up, go look at it, go see what it takes to get into it. It's not that much, and you and your boy build it and enjoy that build process together. And then when you fly it, like if you wreck it, it's just a couple bucks and some time to get back into it. And the sad part of this is that I flew the plane, the Corsair, again, because he asked, how do I launch it? And I said, well, just throttle up and let it go, because it didn't have any landing gear. And so I throttled up and let it, and went to launch it. She almost bit the dirt that time. I'm surprised the prop didn't kick up some dirt, but got her up and out, and the son had come, got positioned in the truck where he could look out and see what I was flying, and they were just oohing and ahhing. And I said, I can have a little fun with this. So I, did an aileron roll and rolled the plane over, and recovered from that. And they were like, oh, that's so cool, that's so cool. And I said, well, taking the pull the nose back and just doing a loop. That's not a big trick. There's nothing to that. Just throttle up. And I did. I throttled up, went through the loop, and came out the bottom. And they were like, "Oh, he just did a loop. That's so cool." And that's about the time I realized that
lower, go lower.
Well, no, the problem was I couldn't get the plane to come back up the altitude. Came out the bottom of the loop, and it felt like shit didn't have any power. I don't know if it felt like maybe the battery had lost some voltage, which it hadn't, because it was, only had a few minutes flight on it. But basically the plane just started stalling out.
Being saggy.
And there wasn't a whole lot I could really do. I throttled up even more to try to pull out of it, but it just couldn't. And that's when I realized just how far over the trees.
I remember we talked about that last time, Joe, right?
Field. Yeah. Like you always say, like, oh, I'm just kind of over those trees. No, I was.
No, you were way over.
I was way over them trees. And it's like, man.
I looked at the private video and I'm watching it and I'm like, Joe, you need to come back. Dude, you're way outside the field. Like if you crash, you will not find that. You were like a mile out from that field over woods.
I don't think it was quite that bad, but
at the worst part it was. I mean, obviously you had good line of sight to it, so it was all good. But as I'm watching, I'm thinking to myself, Joe, bring it back. I don't think you realize how far you are over those trees.
You don't. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
And the field was a lot smaller than I gave it credit for. Like
it looks like a lot, but yeah, that plane eats up that field real quick.
So anyway,
nice.
It started losing altitude. I knew I wasn't going to bring it back, so I just cut throttle. And the guy in his son was like, "Oh well, that sucks. Okay, we're going to go now."
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, sorry about that, and bye. I was like, "That's fine. I gotta go find it." So I went walk back. I'll try to keep this fairly short, but I went walk back in the woods, listen for the ESC tone through the motor. Found the plane, found the tree it was in, realized that it's just kind of set in the top of it. Basically, it did the same thing Spitfire did. Landed in the top of a tree, just gently, please. Not to be outdone, it had to try it. So,
yeah, of course.
I ended up throttling up to see if I could fly out of the tree, since I know that I cut the throttle and it just kind of glided into the tree.
Okay.
It maybe in the perfect world it would have worked until the prop caught a vine and shattered the prop and ripped the motor clean off the firewall and broke the firewall, and all that was what I found out later after I went and got the guy whose property I was flying out by to let's grab the gator or something and kind of slow crawl across the field with a electric chainsaw and cut this tree down.
Wait, so you said
8 times we had to cut that tree.
Can we cut your tree down? Oh my God. So, and he didn't have any problem cutting the tree down?
Well, truthfully, it wasn't his tree we were cutting down. It was whoever's the farm belonged to, but it was so far back in the woods.
Yeah, and it's a big wooded area outside the farm. Based on the footage. Yeah, it was, and I mean, the tree was I don't know, the trunk was 2 foot across. Okay. It wasn't the biggest tree in the world. It wasn't the smallest, but we went to cut it, but it was so tied up with vines up top, and the plane was wrapped up in vines. We cut it off, and I had to kick it off the trunk, and then we cut it some more, and cut it some more, and cut it, just taking chunk, just logs out from underneath this tree as it slowly worked its way down. Was ultimately what happened until I could reach up and grab the plane. Oh my gosh. Out of the top of the tree. Yeah. There's a lot more work than you thought it was going to be, right? No kidding. My back was killing me the next day from yanking and shoving on that tree trunk. Or trying to. I have this picture in my head. And it's the dumb things we do for these toys that bring us joy, right? Mm-hmm. So when it came back out of the tree, what did it look like? So I destroyed the prop when it caught a vine. Yeah. To be expected. FPV camera was still on, just kind of dislodged. The motor had torn itself off the firewall. No, I was wrong. The motor basically ripped the firewall off the styrofoam of the power pod. Okay,
That said, I can just hot glue it back on. The problem is
an
the
extra piece of
firewall is
tape.
now is now rather cracked.
Oh, okay. You need a new one.
Yeah, that firewall took some because you figure that motor was spinning up and then it caught a branch, that twist and torsion, just like instantly. I'm surprised it didn't break the firewall in half.
Yeah, and they're pretty strong. The little plywood, it was a 3/16" plywood.
Yeah,
they're pretty strong, but I mean they give. I guess it's better that than like a airplane like a motor shaft.
So I got to figure out what I'm going to do about that firewall and then get it glued back on. But other than that, part of the wing tip, like the trailing edge, because it's got just this little tab that kind of trails the wing by the aileron, like it's boogered up. And then part of the foam, part of the paper that wraps around the front of the engine.
Okay, in front of the cowl.
Like,
engine nacelle. Okay.
Yeah, the engine cowl. Like, that little circular strip is peeling off, so I need to
a little bit
hot
of glue
or foam tack that down, which if I ever paint it.
Honestly, foam tack would probably be the best choice on that one, I'm imagining. I feel like the hot glue would probably eat through the foam real quick, and there's not much there, so you won't have much left.
Yeah.
So foam tack might be the best choice in that case, but... Nice. Well, I mean, it sounds like what came down was fixable and isn't really an unreasonable repair cost, right? I mean, it's replacing a motor and doing a little bit of hot glue work and rework on some small pieces. So she'll fly again, you think?
She will. Just nice. I got to spend some time with her.
Yeah,
also, it took me about a week, but I got that 4-cell that got balanced back up. Now, I've not flown it. And I've not done a proper discharge and recharge test, but I did get the cells balanced again. Oh,
and you did get a new charger.
Well, yeah, I had to get a new charger. So
that was the other thing I think was the reason why you didn't have the Corsair up a little bit earlier.
Yeah. So yeah, since then I've gotten the charger and 2 4-cell batteries, and I got that 1 4-cell that got unbalanced.
Nice.
Balanced.
Well, good. I hope it holds. You could, if your charger has a resistance tester, you can put it in there and it'll give you resistance values. If one of them is dramatically different than the rest, and they should be all very low. If one of them's kind of high, then you probably can't use that battery safely.
I might have to do that test sometime.
Yeah, just see if you have it. I mean, otherwise, just keep an eye on if they hold equal voltage or not. You know, if they're holding voltage, they're probably fine. If they're not, chances are there could be something wrong. So definitely make sure that when you charge that back up, that you are attending it. You know, it's next to you, so that way if it does start to heat up and smoke, you'll be able to be on it before it catches fire and starts causing real extra trouble. Again, it probably won't happen, but it's best to be safe around that, right? Well, good.
Well, what have you been flying?
So I've been flying the Prandtl D a little bit more, and that has been a lot of fun. I repaired the spar. I put about a 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch, maybe 3/8 inch by 3/8 inch, stick of pine. Nothing fancy, just kind of a couple feet. Put that in there, and then I put 2 barbecue skewers, one across the spar and one across a little bit in front of it. So because when it failed in compression. So the wingtips folded in. And so the highest stress point, if you ever look at a loading curve, it basically ends up, the moment ends up being a parabolic curve where the highest point is on the inside on a cantilever structure. It's in where it's anchored. Which in the wing, it's in the center. So what you're hitting the failure point in the middle, fifth of a wing, right? So if you can reinforce the compression and the tension in those areas, and even maybe put an extra foam piece so it doesn't crush there, you'll end up having a much stronger plane, and you're not adding a ton of weight. So that's essentially what I did to the Prandtl D. And then I went and I took that and the foam board Dragon 2, out, and what I ended up doing with that one is I think I changed the ratio of servo so there was a far smaller movement. So I put the connection rod down lower, and on the tail put it higher, so that the servo throws made smaller movements in the tail, because it was just really touchy. And once I did that, it flew pretty well. I literally took it out, and as I'm getting into the field, I'm watching thunderclouds roll past at like probably, I don't know, 5 miles away, not even. The winds start whipping up, and I can feel it like swirling. There's dark clouds overhead, like pulling. I can feel the clouds of lift, and I can see the rain literally over the farm, like 3 farms out, you know? It's just rolling past. I'm like, oh, this is the worst time that the windsock is straight out. Perfect time to fly a plane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I did. So I flew the Prandtl D, and it was incredibly gusty. So we were talking like 10 or 20 knots, but it was gusting an additional 10 knots of wind, at least, if not more. And so it went from like, windy to, oh God, and then back to windy. So the plane was being buffeted around, and it looked like somebody every once in a while was taking a hand and just kind of batting it around a little bit, like hitting a wing or tapping the other wing or pushing it nose up or down. And she held up. None of the wings failed or anything like that. I was able to control the flight the whole way through. It got pretty hairy for a couple minutes. I ended up bringing it back in one piece. So I was very happy with that. I don't know why I like to go out and all of a sudden it's like awful conditions. I say, yeah, it'll probably be fine. But I flew both those.
You've got this sixth sense that says the weather's about to turn bad. This would be a great time.
I think it's going to get awful at the field. Let's go. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I did that. And flew those, and both of them were actually really pretty successful, considering the buffeting. The Dragon flew really well, and because I had tuned it down a little bit, it was easier to fly. And I think we figured out the big issue that was happening was I didn't have an extra rubber band on. So the 2 rubber bands I had on was enough to keep the fuselage attached to the wing, but during a higher G turn, the fuselage would come off a little bit and shift. And because it shifted, it meant that the CG went all out of whack and would get tail heavy, and it would turn into a horrible plane to fly mid-flight. Yep. And then I would hit another like multi-G spot in the turn, and it would shift again and it would fly okay for a little bit, and it would go back and forth. Anyway, yeah, but I found that out. So if you are rubber banding your wing, don't hesitate to put an extra rubber band on so it stays put. I found that out. You would think I would have learned that a while back, but I guess the rubber bands have never been that loose before. Anyway, and then we had our build event on the 21st, which is basically Saturday midday, and I put together the rest of the T6 Texan. That was the Hangar RC's Texan. I've got it in the back here. It looks fantastic. I don't know if Joe can see it.
I can't see it because your microphone boom arm. Okay.
All right. Just move my mic out of the way so he could see it. Yeah, it's turned out really excellent. I have a couple pieces to figure out how I'm going to put the canopy on so it stays on in flight. And I have to put the electronics in the wing before I attach it. But otherwise, it looks fantastic. I can't wait to get it up in the air. So I think that's definitely one thing I'll be bringing to Flite Fest because I'm looking forward to seeing it roll through the air. It'll be good. Yeah, I need servos. I have a couple builds. I'm running out of servos because I'm using them for other things. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that we'll talk about here in a second when you go to Flite Fest. Make sure to stock up on core materials like push rods and push rod horns or firewalls, or, if you're going to build a brand new plane there, you want to make sure you have the materials you need to get it flying. Now you can go buy the servos, but you'll get quality servos. You're just not going to be, if you want to order a bundle of like 50 servos at $2 a servo or $1.50, you're not going to find that there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be good quality servos. They're going to be $5 to $7 a pop, and just you have to grin and bear it. If you don't want to pay that cost, you better stock up. I guess is the point. And so I'm going to need to do that anyway. So I have some here for some of the other projects I'm working on. I think I robbed Peter to pay Paul too much. So, and speaking of that, one of the other projects I'm working on is I've been eyeing up ever since I was working on the flying submarine, which was 2018, 2017, I think.
Wow.
I know it doesn't feel like that long ago, but I think it was that long ago. I could look at the build log and find out. But well, when I was building that, I was looking at submarines, remote control submarines, to see how they worked. And you know, there's like one guy, and I know he's not the only guy doing this, but he is the only guy who is just an immense wealth of YouTube tutorial videos. And I mean, he loves submarines. He's RC sub guy. He has a website called nautilusdrydocs.com. I'm not plugging his stuff. Obviously I am, I guess, but he is the go-to. If you want to know how to do this stuff, he's the guy. And he's got a number of, if you want a realistic scale model to 3D print, he's got a couple files for like to print a full scale, scale sub. So I was looking at those, and I think I had purchased the STL files and then lost them, and before when my computer went. But I was looking online, and I saw there's a video game called Subnautica, which is basically spaceship crash lands on a pretty much oceanic planet, and things get crazy. Well, anyway, because it's oceanic planet, all the things in there are like submarines and little submarine propeller things and platforms and, research stuff. Anyway.
Right.
So one of their things is a really cool looking sub. And there's a gentleman, and I'm not going to find his stuff because I didn't think to bring it up. That would have been smart. Who has designed a Thingiverse model. He's basically released on Thingiverse, so it's free to download and free to build. He has all the information on the Thingiverse page, like all links to all the materials and all the stuff you can get on Amazon. And if your 3D printer's halfway decent, you'll need like maybe a spool and a half of whatever color filament makes you happy, and about a week of printing. And in short order, you'll have
a lot of printing time.
It is, but at first I was like, oh gosh, this is going to take forever because each print is like 12 hours or 8 hours. But what it is you right before you go to bed, you put in an 8-hour print. By the time you're done with breakfast the next day, you put in the next print and go to work. You come back from work, you eat dinner. When you're done with dinner, that print's done. It's time to put in the next one. Yeah. And a couple of days of that, and all of a sudden you have a submarine in your hands. And he's got a couple of videos that go into details on how to do it. There's an epoxy that's basically a smoothing epoxy. It fills in the gaps in the striations, and it's a self-leveling epoxy. So before it cures, it creates a glass-like finish. And it was real thin. So you put a couple layers of that, and by the time you're done with a couple layers, it's glossy and beautiful. And a bunch of other things, like things he learned on how to set it up. But the watertight cylinder, which is the term used for the center of it, that puts ballast, basically pulls in water from the outside or spits it out, so that the sub can weigh a little bit more or a little less. And what you do is you balance out the sub to be neutrally buoyant, or just a little bit light, so that way when there's no water in the ballast tanks, it's floating. And then it basically sucks in whatever you have for ballast. About halfway through, it's going to start to sink. And then you can control how fast based on how much is in those ballast tanks. And eventually you find that sweet spot that's the neutral spot. And then you turn on your motor and zoom around wherever you're at. So anyway, I'm looking forward to it because now it's actually looking like a submarine. I've got all the pieces printed. I can see how it's going to come together. And I think it just the last couple pieces kind of came in. So I'm hoping that by the end of this week, by the time this episode airs, I should have most of this put together. So That, and I've also started a private pilot's license journey. So that's been exciting.
Yeah.
And this time of year is prone to, like I just talked about, the thunder showers. It's sort of rolling out of nowhere. So I was told that basically 1 out of every 3 pilot lessons you schedule will actually happen. And I've and
Only 1 out of 3.
Yeah. No, 2.
Wow.
Sorry, 1 out of 3 will not happen. Right.
Okay.
Due to weather. Either the ceiling's low or it's misty or whatever. Anyway, so I'm doing a lot of ground school at this minute and trying to get some flight time so I can get some practice. It's been exciting. So far, so good. It's pretty exciting. I'll lightly touch on that as I go because that's going to eat some time up for sure.
Yeah.
But it's exciting for sure. My goal with it is to be able to visit relatives who live 12 to 8 hours of drive time away. So make that trip a weekend trip instead of a all week event. All right, good. So that's what we've been up to. I guess the next is talk about a build night. I know Joe and I really haven't discussed exactly when, but I think the next build night might be either July 23rd, I think that Friday, or the Friday following.
Okay, so you're thinking either the 23rd or the 30th?
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a better. For me, they're both about the same. And it'll be the typical 8 to 10 or 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll post stuff on Facebook. And I apologize for those who were looking to get in on the Saturday and I posted late. And I apologize for that. I earned that one.
Well, just keep your eye out on that one, either the 23rd or the 30th. I think both of those are going to be equal situations for me as well. So we'll pick one and then kind of put the word out.
Yep. Sounds good. I guess that brings us to our topic. Are we going somewhere?
I know you said you are. I'm going to see what I can do.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to Flite Fest. So Aviation RC Noob podcast will definitely have a presence there. With any luck, you'll be able to meet both of us, but we'll see. So that brings us to what is Flite Fest and what's it all about, and then we'll get into some of just briefly go over what's there, so you kind of know what to get into. But if you want to know, just go to flitefest.com. That's FLITEFEST.com. That has all the details and a way to purchase tickets and camping and all that stuff. So ultimately, if you don't know what Flite Fest is, Flite Fest is just a big fun fly. And we're talking on the order of, I think they had thousands of pilots last time, which is 2 years ago. And there are like 3,000 or 4,000 people who come and visit. So they have daily visitors as well as they have people who are there for the whole event. They, in the past, have made the Guinness Book World Records for the most amount of RC flying planes controlled in the sky at once. Which was pretty tremendous.
Yeah, it was. I remember watching a video on that, and I didn't think too much of it at the time because I didn't have a ton of flight experience yet. But they were having to launch in waves to get everybody up there.
And you had to fly around for a certain amount of time. I think it was,
right.
So
you had to do like keep in the air for a while. They had to verify how many people were up there. They had to launch them in waves. You had to keep track of your plane so you weren't crashing it in somebody else's. But I mean, all that aside, just the thought of how they must have thought to stagger. Like, okay, let's get some slow flies with big battery capacities. Like those who know they're going to be able to fly for a while, let's get them up in the air first. Yeah, then we can get the guys who aren't going to last long. Anyway, I remember watching that video.
No, it's a good video. And if you are interested about it, go look it up because it's a pretty interesting feat of, I'll call it the technology, but go watch the video. I don't need to talk about it. It's in Malvern, Ohio, and it's at the Air Ranch that's owned by Austin Fury's dad, and he's one of the guys who's been with Flite Fest since near the beginning, if not at the beginning. He was Chad Kapper's buddy, and I believe he's obviously Josh Bixler's buddy. And his father owns basically a house on an airstrip, and they got a RV7, I think, or RV8. And it basically, so he allows the Flite Festival to happen on his property. He has a big bean field out there that, he kind of makes sure he's planting the right crop at the right time. So he plants beans, I think, for us because you got to walk through it, and beans are kind. Some plants are not. As I'm learning when I go out and to grab stuff out of my field, wheat isn't as kind as you think. Tobacco isn't entirely the best. There's certain ones like sweet potatoes and beans are pretty nice. Anyway, so it's like 3 or 4 days of absolute utter foam plane mayhem and fun. And if you love to build, they have 2 or 3 build. I think they said they're going to add an extra build tent. Although I think the third one is going to be primarily for like education classes and build classes and things like that. Where if you're in our community, I know Dan Spons has kind of put a couple things together. I think he's having a build session for his Bloody Baron. There's a bunch of things going on. I urge you to go to the website and tell you the different events that are happening. So you'll have combats every couple hours. There's quad racing over on the left half of the field, at least it was in the past. There's a STEM build tent, so there's STEM stuff going on for the kids typically. Last time it wasn't going on. I think there was a conflict, but they'll definitely have it this time. There's a big shop, so if you want supplies, as well as there's a ton of vendors, and they're supplying their own things. Like if you want to do night flight, like there's a guy who has stuff just for night flight for you. Tiny whoop races go on at night. They basically light up the little big center tent. If you watch the videos, they have that kind of double poled stake tent that kind of looks like a canvas tent kind of deal. They light that up from underneath, and then they set up a tiny whoop racetrack, and they just have that going on. So people who want to do that are there. And then of course, if you want to watch, which is pretty fun, that's a neat thing to do. Night flying happens all night. So if you've got your plane lit and you're willing to take the chance, that's a great time to do it. They have campfires, music. You'll have Wi-Fi is available, and they have really great like bathroom trucks. So they have full running water, hot and cold. They have showers. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like yeah.
It's not just like the foot pedal hand washers,
No, I think when we went to National Jamboree up at Fort A.P. Hill in Virginia a number of years ago, they were basically tractor trailer bathhouses.
Yeah,
they'd roll them up as a trailer behind a 18-wheeler, drop them off, and that was your bathhouse.
Yeah, and there's still porta potties for the camp area, but and those are great for most of the time. But there's always that time in the morning where you just like to start off fresh. That's the way to do it. So, and they keep them real clean and they're nice. They have power, so you'll be able to plug in whatever you bring. So if you got your hot glue guns, you got your battery chargers and a bunch of other things, like you'll be able to plug them in. Bring an extra power cord. That way you can plug in a couple things that are yours without hogging up all the outlets. The build tents have, it must be like 38 foot by 3 foot tables.
Okay.
In each one of them. So, I mean, there's tons of space to lay down. There's some days that get busier than others. They try to, you try to be kind. Like if there's new people coming in on Saturday and you've been like building something for days, make room. let them get a chance to hang out in the hobby, even though you're, and the neat thing is even if you aren't interested in building, like go walk through the tents. You never know what you'll see or who you'll meet. Or like maybe build techniques. You're like, oh wow, I didn't even think about doing that. I want to try that. Mm-hmm. So that's neat. It's camping. So I guess let's talk about. So those are all the kinds of things that are going on. I'm gonna gush because I had a good time with it. But let's talk about what you want to bring. Right. You're camping or your RV. So if you bring in your RV, bring all the stuff that makes your RV camping experience happy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Chairs to sit out with, tables to build at, lights to see by, food, whatever.
Citronella candles to say screw you mosquitoes.
That's it. Or those
are mosquitoes a thing in Ohio?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they just don't last as long. Like they have a shorter season.
Okay.
But yeah, they're still there. Trust me, you'll get bit. Bloodsuckers are everywhere. Okay, so if you're not, then you're tent camping, right? So they have a bunch of areas where they've kind of cordoned off like a 15 or 20 by 20 area for you to camp in. So you pull in your car in one part of it and you camp in the other. And that's basically bring a tent, bring a sleeping bag. I'm old, so I bring an air mattress or some sort of ground thing, bring a pillow. I view it as kind of like I view any hotel when I'm going somewhere for an event. It's the place I put my head down and sleep so that I can get up early and go do more of it.
Right.
So I'm not looking to be spending all my time in my tent. So I literally bring it bare bones so that I can go in, get some sleep, get out refreshed, and then go on. And I don't come back typically but once or twice. Bring a chair to sit in, relax in. A pop-up is nice, give you some shade. Bring anchors for it because it could get windy. They have bathrooms and showers. Bring some snacks and something to drink. Stay hydrated. I mean, but in that vein, they're going to have about 6, maybe more, food vendors. So there'll be an Italian sausage joint. There'll be a pizza joint. There'll be a lemonade stand guy. There'll be the local Rotary Club and, that kind of thing,
Right.
So they'll be there and you'll be eating that all weekend unless you want to go, out into town. So be aware that you're going to be eating that food for like 3 days solid. And if you don't want to or can't, then plan on being prepared for that. That's all. The town isn't far away, and it's easy. They have, the traditional trappings of town. So, fast food and a couple restaurants and things like that. So if you want to get a break from all that, it's easy to get to. I guess that brings me to what should you bring so that you can build something while you're there, right?
Okay. Because I mean, basically your build supplies, right? Like,
well, yeah, mostly. Most of them are the pretty big. So I think I went the first year and I brought everything, and a lot of people like to do that. What I realized was I have to carry that to and from every time I go to build. And I can leave it there, but then I risk somebody, I don't know, rooting through my stuff and grabbing it. I mean, that's usually not a huge deal. And honestly, part of what I love about this event is it has that same, well, the community has been fostered by Flite Fest. And if you watch their videos, obviously the attitude is, let's get people into the hobby. Let's make it a great experience. The objective is to meet people and gain new friends. This hobby is just an avenue, right?
Right.
And with that, a lot of people carry that attitude and that demeanor with them to the event. So I haven't really run into people stealing a bunch of stuff. Usually, if you're like, oh, shoot, I just burned up my ESC. I don't even know. I don't have one. That sucks. I guess I'm going to have to go. Like, dude, get it in the air. Here, take this, I have an extra ESC. I brought like 6. I only need 2. Take one of these and go fly it. Like, what? No, you don't. Or like, hey, here's a prop. Don't take the prop. I know you busted yours. Go, go have fun. The combat's starting. It's a very generous group, and vice versa. I've done the same for other people. Also, if you're building, you're like, I don't know, how would I do this? You can have a bunch of people in varying skill levels who can offer advice and help, or I don't know, but I know that guy knows everything. Like go talk to him. Okay, and you'll see some crazy stuff being built. So, I mean, if you go and you don't go in the build tents, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Plus, they have multiple ones. So if you're in one building, don't hesitate to get up and go check out the other tent. You never know what you'll find. That's pretty cool stuff. So in that vein, don't bring so much that you can't drag it to and from your tent or car. Okay.
Right.
Because you may be, your tents aren't going to be butted right up against the event. Bring your batteries, bring a charger for the batteries, bring extra props like you should always do every time you go to the field, tape, something to make your plane yours so you can tell it from all the other planes in the sky. So I usually bring colored tape. You could bring spray paint, things like that, but it's something to make it clear where your plane is. Definitely bring glue sticks and glue guns. In a pinch, if you're out, somebody can help you. I'm sure that usually works out, but it's not something you want to rely on. Bring a couple motor packs, A pack, F pack, C pack, so that when you're building a kit, if you decide to go build a kit, or plan on buying one of the packs, so that way you can build the kit and arm it and ready to go.
Right.
Otherwise, bring the material that would typically be in a kit. So a couple servos, extension wire, XT connectors, XT60 or XT30s, whatever you like to use. If you have an extra ESC, make sure you have one, because if you burn one up, you're going to be kind of out of luck. But all that said, the shop, it's like a pole barn that they turn into a shop. That shop will have everything you need to get back in the air. If you have the money. If you don't have the money for it and you don't want to be spending too much on that stuff, then bring it with you. X-Acto knife with extra blades. Don't forget that. That's going to be critical, because if you can't cut the foam, it's not going to be good. Barbecue skewers, control rods, servo horns, that kind of stuff. One of the things I found that was a lot of fun is, if you're going to build something unusual, bring plans for it, so that way you can get cracking on it quick. Even if it's like a little 8.5 by 11 sheet with dimensions, maybe. But if you have a neat idea, it's a great time to just check it out. You'll have a lot of people helping you, trying to help you figure out and get it in the air.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's also vendors. So you'll have people selling airplanes, ready to run, ready to fly. You'll have people who are selling they're basically like a hobby store. So they have a bin with LEDs, a bin with LED controllers. It's like a hobby store. Just ask them, I'm working on this project, I need some help with this. And so there'll be manufacturers, there'll be of all different kinds. There'll be balsa, it'll be foam, it'll be... really, it's all over the board. The Power Up guy was there the last time I went. Joshua Finn, he does like the little hand launch gliders, the balsa gliders, the more like advanced versions. Like he has kits that he brings with him there. Again, just a ton of different stuff. And not last but not least, there'll be a separate section off to one side or the other where they're doing quadcopter races. If you've never done a quadcopter race or seen one and always want to check it out, go check it out. It's pretty neat. It's a very different thing. So that's definitely something. And make sure that you bring some money to be able to go to the shop and enjoy it. If there's something you want to get, just know what your budget is. They accept credit cards and all that kind of stuff at all these places. So I think that's, other than that, I think do you have any questions so far? Anything you want to know about, Joe?
I think you've pretty well covered it. At least any question that I might have had.
If there's somebody in the community, that you want to catch up with, that you've been talking to and having a good banter back and forth, go out in the next couple of weeks and ask them, hey, are you going to Flite Fest? If you're going, say, hey, I think I'm probably going to be camping, so I'll probably be over here, and then ask them where you think they'll be, because there's an RV section over to one side and the camping section is way on the other. Don't be afraid to walk through the RV section and just see what's going on over there if you're camping, and vice versa.
Right.
You'd be surprised at all the setups people have. I saw some people with a bunch of car batteries and LEDs lit up everywhere. They had a mosquito tent with 6 different tables. They were having their own build event over there. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, neat stuff. And then sometimes you go through hey, I think I saw that. Are you so and so? It's like Horseman 3536 or something. I was like, "Are you Horseman 3? I've seen that before." He's like, "Yeah, that's me." I'm like, "Whoa, I've seen all your stuff. That's great. Like, let's talk." And we talked for like an hour and a half, and got to know each other better. I met with a handful of people that I've been talking to with for a while. So like I said, reach out. It's a great opportunity to get together from different. I mean, people travel. We're traveling 10 hours, I think, 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah, something like that.
And people do the same thing. So anywhere from like Wisconsin on over, people come far and wide. So if there's somebody you've been getting to know and really enjoy talking to online, reach out, see if they're going. You might be surprised. And I think last but not least, one of the ways that you can help the event, and a lot of people recommend this for newbies, because you're at this event, you don't really know anybody except maybe the people you brought with. A good way to meet people is to volunteer. If you're running the like the parking crew, well, you're meeting everybody who's coming in. If you're on the flight line, I didn't even talk about the flight line. But basically, if you're on the flight line, every pilot who's wanting to fly something, which is pretty much everybody who comes to Flite Fest, you're going to meet him, probably, or at least see all the crazy concoctions that people come up with, And then, just volunteer. I volunteered for the build tents last couple times, and it was a good experience. Got to see a bunch of crazy builds, got to talk to a bunch of people. You kind of learn who's been in the hobby a bit and who's new, and you can help them connect to each other to have a better experience between them. And then I think last but not least, we'll talk about the flight lines. They have like the cavalcade things, when you're doing the
what now?
The cattle, what are those? The railings, the temporary railings that kind of sit into one another.
Okay.
So they have those lined up against a certain point. There's like a main drag in front of most of the tents. At least that's how they had it set up before. And they had kind of vendors, or if you were wanting to have a spot to put all your planes, you'd set up a pop-up over there and then you put them there. And then periodically there's a break in that fence line. And then basically just beyond the fence line, that's a control point between the flight area and the build area and the event, right? And so in front of that is where the flyer or the pilot and the spotter go. And then they go to the geo fabric or whatever they put down for the runway. And then beyond that are beans. So they have a system that when we were there last time, and it may change. That's, so they're going to have pilot meetings every morning, go figure out, what's the deal, right? You're going to learn like, okay, don't go here, yell if you're launching, yell if you're going to go retrieve. That way people who are in the nearby area, if they're coming into land, they'll at least know that you're trying to do that. They might say, I'm landing, It's about being safe, really. They have horns. They have air horns. So if you hear an air horn, your spotter's looking to figure out where the errant airplane is coming from and that you're not in its path. But yeah, the whole point of the air horns is that you hear a blast or a couple blasts, and if you hear it keeping going, it's because an airplane is behind the flight line. And then they'll have like a couple flags, and it's basically kind of these are the stations that you stand at, you know what I mean? And they'll have like a snow fence or something like that to kind of protect you from a plane who's coming at you. But and then basically just go fly, have fun. On most days, every couple hours, they're going to have a combat event where this is why you want to bring the planes you don't love, bring the friends you love, but not the planes. Because there's going to be combats, and basically combats, they look at any of the videos. There's a ton of videos. They're crazy. Basically people put planes in the air and you have like last one standing wins or whatever, or somebody's made a really big something and they'll set that up in the air first. And then all the other planes are trying to take those down or whatever. They come up with something on the fly.
And it's all basically collision combat at this point, unless they're doing the streamer combats.
They do some streamer combats. So they also, they have, when you get there, I would say go to the store and get a couple things of streamers so that they're ready. Because there's nothing worse than going, I want to be on the streamer combat, but I don't have streamers. So you have to go wait in line and get the thing. By that point, the combat's over. But yeah, sometimes they'll do streamer combats, but other times it'll be just straight collision combat, or it'll be longest flying combat. And at a certain point, they're like, okay, you got 6 people here. Whoever can get to this spot, in front of me, whoever gets closest to that spot wins, which is basically hurling your plane at that spot oftentimes. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. It's craziness. It's mayhem. It's meeting people who all love this hobby just like you do, and get an opportunity to kind of broaden what you know about the hobby. At least that's what I love about it.
All right.
Anything else that you think you might you're not really sure about?
No, I don't know what to expect other than what you've told me. So,
it's a pretty big event. They do a really good job of pulling it together in the past that I've seen. I imagine this year will be no different. There's usually some crazy something going on. So be on the lookout for it.
Well, here's hoping I can make it this year.
I know. Hope so. I'm crossing my fingers. I think if we are going, we're planning on being there coming up on Thursday and being there Friday and Saturday and into Sunday. And then on Sunday, like everybody will be on our way. So if you're there, come look for us. We'll be in the camping area. That's for sure. I don't have an RV. Joe, you have an RV?
No.
You plan on renting one?
I mean, we can sleep in the back of my Prius.
Yeah, that's not the same.
It's big enough.
Yeah, I know it is. No, we're not. So we're not going to be doing that. So we'll be in the camping area, wherever that is. Just wander around. I'm sure you'll find us. I think we'll be trying to wear. We have shirts that we've picked up. They have our logo on it, so it's a blue shirt. So look for us in blue shirts, maybe. And I'm planning on having a limited run of mugs, of listener mugs. So just ask us about them. They'll be about $25. And if you purchase them, they help support the podcast. So other than that, I think that's all we have on the subject.
That's a missed opportunity because you'd shipped down a couple of the host mugs, and I should have had me some coffee in one tonight.
Oh man, you should have done it. Well,
You got yours?
I'm doing mine in the Flite Fest mug I purchased last time I went, in honor of, I guess, our conversation topic. So, that's a good location to get build materials. Like if you want to try out the builder foam, if you can bring it back, you don't have to pay shipping because you're shipping it.
There you go.
So you can save a bundle that way. So that is something I was hoping to be able to do last time, but I had my kids with me and all the planes and all the stuff, and we were packed to the brim. There was no way. I can't believe I fit in all the things I purchased while I was there. I was not fitting a case of foam, but that's something to consider. If that's been an issue, like I know when I put it into the cart and I hit like, okay, cool, I'm going to buy it. And I'm like, oh man, the price just went up by a quarter. I don't think I'm going to buy it. So that's an opportunity to go and get it and not have to pay shipping costs.
Yeah.
And it's likely not going to cost you much more in gas. So, all right. Well, I guess that brings us to a workbench.
Yeah. I can go ahead and go first on that one. If I get some time to do some work on planes, then I'll be, doing some repair work on the Corsair. I still got to build the power pod for the Fogey and then continuing on the Depron wing. Okay. But the Corsair has flown. I know. So it just needs some patch 'em up work and maybe a paint job. We'll see. Okay. Awesome. I'm excited to see that. What about you? That brings me to the projects that I started a while back. Car plane is not lost. It seems like it might be forgotten, but it's still there. So I'm probably going to get back to that and the J1000, finish those up. The Texan will get its servos, I'm certain, and I'll get that in the air.
and I have almost finished filming the Prandtl D build video, the FT style build Prandtl D.
Okay.
So that, be on the lookout for that. When that's done, that'll basically be a build video with a link to plans. So you can, if you want to build one yourself, please do. And let me know how it flew. That's it.
All right. Well, as a reminder, you were looking at the 23rd or the 30th of July as the next potential build night. So guys, just keep your ears peeled on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to join the Discord channel or the Discord server, because any announcements for build nights will be put in there, or follow us on Facebook, because Matthew tends to post those on Facebook as well.
As well as when the episodes come out. If you're not following us, you can certainly follow the Facebook page, and we announce it there too.
All right. Well, Matthew, anything else for tonight?
No, that's everything I need tonight. Next time we come back, I think we'll be talking back on the history stuff, right?
Yeah, we were tossing around a couple ideas of what we wanted to do, because the next episode, I think, would have it scheduled to be releasing on Flite Fest, the weekend before Flite Fest.
Yeah, I think, or the weekend of Flite Fest.
Yeah.
Or weekend after. I don't know.
That'd be the weekend of. I just looked at the calendar.
Oh,
So this one's releasing on the 3rd, then the 10th and 17th. 2 weeks later would be Flite Fest. So, yeah, we've tossed around a couple ideas. We might talk some more history. Because originally when we talked about doing the types of planes, we had discussed maybe doing some deep dives or some airplane per episode kind of conversations. And so I did a deep dive on Spitfire that we might make use of.
Okay, good. Yeah, that sounds like a perfect thing. I know if we end up talking to some people over at Flite Fest, chances are that is going to be what we talk about the episode following. If not, we'll probably continue the history thing, or we'll come up with something totally different. If not, let us know what you think. And let us know what you'd like to hear about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always feel free to request that kind of stuff, because a lot of times just Matthew and I trying to say, well, what can we talk about? We don't have years upon years in the hobby. So if there's something you want us to talk about, feel free to write in.
Yeah.
Let us know. You can reach us at Matthew@aviationrcnoob.com or Joe at aviationrcnoob.com, or you can reach both of us jointly, aviationrcnoob@gmail.com. So feel free to reach out, let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about, ask us any questions you may have down in the description of this episode. Of course, you can find a link to the Discord server. Feel free to join the Discord server so that on future build nights you can join us, hang out, and have a good time.
Yeah, it's an awesome community that's pretty active, as people kind of sharing what you're doing in the hobby. If you ever need a boost or just want to get feedback or have a question, there's a ton of guys, that, including Joe and myself, who would be happy to try to help you out. I think with that, let's wrap it up. Let's say goodnight.
All right. Well, guys, as always, thank you for tuning in and listening. Hopefully you have enjoyed this conversation as much as Matthew and I have enjoyed having it, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye.